more power, more influence. And I did this ritual and I opened myself up and Jesus appeared.
Let me give you one example. This is an example I use a lot. This is a spiritualist, satanic spiritualist that, and it's a short clip, but he talks about how he wanted to encourage the devotion to his satanic church. And because of that, he was doing a ritual and he thinks he met Jesus. Watch this.
I did this interview, and in this interview I said, I don't believe that Jesus Christ exists. After that interview, I had a meeting with council members at the church, and they said, okay, great, now we've done all these interviews and people know, and it's growing, Satanism is growing, and believe me, people, it is. And I had to do a ritual by myself to see, how do I get more power, more influence? And I did this ritual and I opened myself up and Jesus appeared. And I was extremely cocky. And I said, if you are Jesus, you need to prove it. And he flooded me with the most beautiful love and energy. And I recognized it immediately.
Okay, so what's going on here? Well, something appeared to him because he had requested that he wanted to get more members into Satanism. And it looked like it was Christ. And he thinks he identified it was Christ because of the emotion it gave him. You don't identify Christ by the emotion. Even people that were walking down the road with him after he had risen from the dead, disciples didn't even know they were walking beside him, except of what he said and how he said it. So I think it's very interesting that this guy, and if you go further on in his talk, the thing that's talking to him that looks like Christ himself says, you need to tune into your inner divinity. You are your own God. And so we know for a fact that has been the lie from the very beginning. That's Genesis 3. What do you think about that, James? I see you're bubbling over.
I'm just, listening to his testimony. I've heard his story before. There was a longer version of that because he went on a podcast where he was speaking. And I was able to pick up on a number of cues. And the first one that stood out to me was the word of God was lacking. The emotionalism was there, but the biblical truths was not. As a matter of fact, I listened to a 45 minutes discussion on the podcast. Not a single scripture was even referred to. As a matter of fact, not quoted, not even paraphrased. And that to me is like a big red flag because like Isaiah 8:20 says, to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to these words, it is because there is no light in him. So I begin to realize the word is not there. And that's a major issue. The experimental and the knowledge and the emotion was there. The feeling was present, but the word was not. And that was all I needed at that moment. And again, when I begin to examine the theological stuff that was in that testimony as well, I'm like, we have some serious problems here. Some very serious problems. The Jesus we're talking about here, it's a Jesus that is full of love and it's an emotional, a lovey-dovey Jesus. But I wasn't getting that Jesus that calls us to repentance and conversion, and the Jesus that asks us to abide in his love and his grace, a Jesus that says to turn away from sin. I didn't get that Jesus from his testimony either. So that must have been the other Jesus that the Apostle Paul speaks about.
Oh my goodness. And so this, exactly. This emotionalism that comes a part of this whole thing is going to be really, really difficult. But I think that we need to understand as Christians that this is one of the avenues. This is one of the spiritual weapons that spirits have against us. Another one is the attack. Well, I wrote down, don't attack them dead. I'm not sure what I said about that. Let's just watch the clip and I'll understand. That better quotes next time.
Go ahead.
Watch this.
Have human beings been hurt?
Your screen is not sharing, by the way.
By a non-human intelligence.
While I can't get into the specifics because that would reveal certain U.S. classified operations, I was briefed by a few individuals on the program that there were malevolent events like that.
So he's asking, has anything killed humanity that we have classified from this NHI, from these things that are happening. He said, well, I can't get into specifics, but we have had malevolent events like that. And Tucker goes into a little further detail because there has been a Stanford medical professor that has come out and said he's a witness in cases where the families aren't compensated for what has happened in the military. Watch this.
This summer, we got a call. We didn't reach out. This person called us. Lexi, who's standing right there, who's a genius, one of our producers, gets this call from this guy who's a tenured Stanford medical school professor, and he wants to come on the show. Now, this guy has a couple patents, and so he's rich. And he's got tenure at one of the most prestigious schools in the world. So, like, he's not a flake. He comes on, and he's like, 11 years ago, the U.S. government reached out to me because I'm an expert on head injuries, on brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries, as a physician, and they had all these court cases from families of U.S. servicemen, over 100, who'd been killed by UFOs. And the Department of Defense was refusing to give them death benefits or medical benefits. And I'm like, and he's like, so they're in the courts. And I was like, there are over 100 servicemen killed by UFOs? Like, what? He's like, yeah, and there are court cases about it. I'm like, why isn't this on the front page of the New York Times? I don't know. But he goes, I'm involved in it. I'm one of the researchers. I'm the expert witness in these cases.
Okay, so if you have trouble with that music in the background, I can give you, I can help you fix that because I realized I forgot to take that out. But
no, it's fine.
But what he said was that that there has been military that's been basically, this is what happens according to, and I'm going to go into a little bit of lore on this, and I apologize for that because I try to keep everything absolutely factual. But according to some of what people have said about this is that military have shot at these things. They shoot at these lights in the sky because they're like, what is going on? Why is this thing hovering over my military base? Why is it landing here? And they go up to these things, and if they try to attack it with their weapons, the thing reverses their bullets. The thing reverses their rockets and shoots them back at them and does more damage than if it was to hit the object itself. They said, we don't know what's going on here, but we don't touch these things because whatever there are, they're more advanced than we are.
Yeah. Sounds very spiritual. Yeah.
And so something else is happening here, and it's not, little green men that are coming from outer space. This is a spiritual deception that's coming upon the nation, and they're waiting for someone to reach out to them. This is my belief on this because Satan was confined to the tree. There are rules of engagement that have to happen with the spiritual realm. And if he's confined to a specific place, he's waiting for Eve to come out and say, hey, yeah, I'll talk to you. Let's converse. All that has to happen for this plan to just speed up immensely is for our country to say, there are extraterrestrials. There are something out there. And by the way, we can talk to them. All you have to do is X, Y, and Z. And we'll have a huge group of people that are going to be reaching out to these things, believing that they are talking to something that is absolutely against the law of God. And it's going to just explode. That's my concern. Rabbit trailing again. But possession is the next thing. Okay, so there's many forms of this stuff. And that is the possession and lies are the last one. But I want to show you one clip here from Gary Noland, because this is interesting. When he was going, he has I'm just going to show you the clip. This is much easier if I just do that.
Whatever the phenomenon is, it's capable of manipulating human perception, human consciousness.
Right.
It can make us see things that aren't there.
I mean, the best example of this that I know is a story that Jacques Vallée brought to me of a family in France driving down the highway. This was like in the last 5 to 10 years. And they had a glass-topped car. And they look up and they see a UFO, basically paralleling them down the highway. The mother looks around and sees that no other individuals nearby are freaking out about this thing above them. The children in the back take out their cell phones, take a picture of it. They get home and they look at the pictures on their camera and they don't see an object. They see a little star-shaped thing about 30 so feet above it. And I have the picture. Even if it was an object, that was there. Others weren't capable of seeing it. So it was manipulating vision. So yes is the short answer.
So now we're getting into an understanding of drones, perhaps. So there's two different things, and we're going to get into that. So don't think I've swapped stories on you, but this is the one
I love the fact you laid that foundation and taking us through the historical. You're doing great. I'm not stopping you. This is amazing.
So this is an interesting weapon that they have chosen because it can go in a few different ways. We don't know, and probably the Bible, if I really dig into it, I can understand what the purpose of why these angels have the ability to do this. Why do they have the ability to, for lack of a better word, shapeshift into different things like dead relatives? Why do they have the ability to come in and change our emotions or make us see things that aren't there, like visions or augmented reality?
Does the church celebrate the Holy Mass on Sunday, not a Sabbath, Saturday? For the following.
That popped up on my end. Yeah, go ahead.
I thought you had a third person in here. I was like,
no, my
Very
apologies.
good.
Yeah.
And so I wonder about that. That's the first thing I'm going to ask God is why in the world did we have do we have entities that can do this? And I think that's going to be revealed. But so you have Gary Nolan, Stanford medical professor, that says that when he has a photograph of these things, and what he saw was just a star in the sky, a star. That's interesting that he sees this object in the sky as a star, but with this physical camera. But what was in the minds of the people in this vehicle was a big ship, almost as if I'm thinking this thing was implanting ideas into the heads of these individuals, but it wasn't actually true. It wasn't visible to everybody everywhere. And so that's one of the things I think we need to think about when we're seeing things in the sky, whether it be drones, whether it be lights in the sky. Are these things physical? Are they real? I mean, is it making a sound? Sure, but it could be that it's also just for you in your head as a deception. I know that's crazy, but granted, James, I don't think that's everything we're seeing with the drones. I'm going to go into that a little bit later too, but I think we need to at least consider that.
Correct.
That's augmented reality. And the last thing I wanted to look at was also the lies that have been produced by this. We have I have two videos on this, and one of them is talking about the Ukraine. This is an early clip that came out a long time ago. I grabbed because I think it was very interesting that we have someone on mainstream Christian broadcasting, CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network, that says we have individuals that we are employing over there in the Ukraine to tell us what's going on, and they're seeing UFOs in the sky, and they're helping. What's going on here? Watch this. This is really revealing. If I can play this.
Whatever the phenomenon is.
Let's go to the next one.
A pillar of fire at night and confused Russian troops. It has some asking, are Ukrainians receiving heavenly help?
There's some miracle happened. It looked like some spaceship, like there was like an attack from the spaceship. There was some kind of a lightnings was starting shooting from the sky, and like sparks were like spreading everywhere. And then on the morning they discovered that the whole machinery was destroyed.
Okay, so in that one, and then Bledsoe, there's another, let me bring it back to me real quick. There's another clip I want to show you that talks about this is another thing. Ryan Bledsoe's, which is the son of Chris Bledsoe. Chris Bledsoe has been experiencing these things quite a bit and has several podcasts out there that talks about fiery orbs that come up to him. What's interesting about this, there's so much to talk about in this topic, but what's fascinating about this is at the inauguration, guess who was at the inauguration? Chris Bledsoe.
Really?
Is a spiritualist that are seeing orbs in the sky. Why was he invited to the inauguration? That's fascinating to me. We're going to go over that in Strange Normal sometime. But,
okay. Yes.
but we're gathering more and more information on that as we speak. I'm probably talking out of turn here, but that's
that's the same Bledsoe last time we've met. You spoke about who had an encounter and his life never been the same ever since, in a sense.
He used to be Christian, but then something came to him and said that we were going to use you to announce us to the rest of society and tell more people. Yeah, he was invited to Trump's inauguration. Well, that's really interesting to me.
Very interesting.
So he used to. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good.
I think so. Ryan is his son, and this is what he thinks about this whole thing. Watch this.
They gave him a message. They gave him a long message. You know,
his father.
They said they're the guardians. They said that they work for creation, that they created us. They protect us from the forces of darkness and things like that. And through the aeons, meaning, you know, the ages, thousands and thousands of years, they have sort of like overseen our, you could say, evolution.
Okay. So in other words, they came to his father and they said, we're the guiders. We've been here forever. And we're guiding society. We're essentially the angels, and we want to give you a message. We want you to present us to the world. And this is where we start to detour from things a little bit, and I go into something that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, a little strange. We're going to talk about what could be on the horizon.